Show them how it's done. Create student leaders from day one. Learning outcomes of this presentation or module will be to explore the 3 phases of orientation, discover how to facilitate small group discussions, and to examine effective ways to connect with new students. I want you to think back for a moment when you were a first year student. Before you arrived on campus, what factors made you choose the campus that you're now going to school at? When you first arrived on campus, who made you feel comfortable? And is there anything you wish you knew when you first arrived? I want you to take a moment and I want you to pause the video and I want you to answer these questions. Okay, now that you've answered those 3 questions, there's a reason why I had you do it. We're going to talk a little bit about the 3 phases of orientation. And of course, the first phase is the pre-campus arrival. So this is your attempt to welcome the students before they even get on campus. And I think this is great because it sets the tone and it creates an expectation and environment for the students, before they get there. You can do this through a few ways if you have access to some of their information. If that's at all possible, you can send them a iJot video or YouTube video, just sort of welcoming them to your campus. You can personalize it. I think that's a great way to get the students on your side. You can also connect with them via social media. You can also write them a letter and send it to them. Do a door deck. Now, door decks are usually for something that resident assistants do. It's when you decorate their door before their arrival, just to make them feel more at home. And then you can also do an interest survey, which will give you an opportunity to get to know them better before you meet them. So in this interest survey, you ask them questions like, what's your favorite food? Where are you from? What is your major? Things like that. Nothing too invasive, but, questions that you feel will be relevant to their success at the institution. The second phase is once they arrive on campus. And one of the first things you want to do is establish expectations. And you can do this by utilizing community standards. What community standards are, it's pretty much a group of rules that the entire community or the group adheres to. Now, again, this is a lot easier if you are a resident assistant and you are living with the residents. If you're not a resident assistant, it's a little bit difficult to do, but you still can find a way to connect with the students. You have to know your campus resources, and this is really important because they're going to look at you as a campus resource, and there's a very good chance that they're going to need assistance with various issues that they're going to run into, and you're not going to be able to solve them all by yourself. So learning what the campus resources are, very important. Having integrity from the start. Now, I have to put this out there because I think a lot of times, and I've seen this, I've witnessed this myself, where students tend to take advantage of students because you're the first students that they meet, and some people use this opportunity to hook up with them. And you have to understand that hooking up with a student is not cool. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand if there's an attraction there, then so be it, I suppose. But understand that it is an issue of integrity. And I think it's going to be very difficult for you to set any type of boundaries or set any type of rules or enforce any type of rules if you have already compromised your integrity from the beginning. So that's just something to consider. And the third phase is relationship building. So this is making sure that you follow up with the students just to check up on them and to make sure that they're doing okay and to answer any questions that they may have. Remember, you are a referral agent first. So if a student is having some type of, let's say, um, breakdown of sorts, because this is typical because a lot of students go through experience homesickness. Um, you can't stay there with them the whole time, and you can't spend a great deal of time with the student in order to get them to resolve their issues. Sometimes you have to just recommend them to a counselor or some other professional on campus. I think you have to get good at saying no. A lot of times it's very common that you want to be liked by a student, but in truth, you have to learn to say no. And of course, you have to just role model. This goes back to what I was talking about before with having a level of integrity and not hooking up with your students. But another caveat of that is being being good academically, doing what you're supposed to academically. If your students see that you're not studying or you're not taking advantage of resources or you're not being actively involved on campus or if you're impolite, they tend to follow your lead. So you have to remember, you may be the very first person they meet. And so they're watching you to see what the norms are and how to go about doing things on your campus. Let's talk a little bit about facilitating small group discussions. Now, here are the ground rules. First and foremost is the 10-80-10 rule, which basically means if you take all of your students, 10% of the students that you're going to lead will not like you no matter what you do. They will never develop a personal relationship with you. Another 10% will love you no matter what you do. They are your biggest advocates. They are your biggest fans. But then there's the 80%. And 80% of the students are for you to influence and to persuade. Now, depending upon how you do things, they can either be on your side or against you. But that 80% is for you to persuade. Other aspect of this is being familiar with resources. I cannot reiterate this enough. You have to be familiar with the resources on your campus because, again, these students, when they run into problems, they need to know where to go in order to get these problems resolved. And it's not enough for you to tell them you don't know, because when you say you don't know, you lose a lot of credibility. So taking the time to be familiar with the resources on your campus is a must. Everyone has baggage. Everyone, including yourself, has a level of baggage. So you have to take that in consideration. When they come to your campus, you don't know what their experiences have been in the past. So you have to do your very best to understand that they're going to have baggage and just accept it and move on. And last but not least, you have to establish the tone from the beginning. And that is no one's responsibility but yours. And depending upon what type of tone you establish, generally speaking, that's how you're going to be perceived from the beginning. So, for instance, if you come off as a person who is very much a pushover from that point on, or eager, you're trying to really please them, that's what they're going to do, because it's a lot harder to, I guess, gain respect after they have perceived you as one thing. So one thing that I suggest is be a little bit firm in the beginning, and as time goes on, decide to loosen it up. You'll have an easier way to go. Now, when we're talking about facilitating group discussion, talking a little bit about a meeting or anytime you have to facilitate a group discussion. I remember in my days as a RA, I had to do floor meetings. And floor meetings was just a time you got students together and you pretty much went over various things that were happening. However, one of the things that you can do is make it interesting. So I think one of the things you can do, even though in the beginning these students will really not know what a format is, I would say do an icebreaker or explain what the ground rules are. And icebreaker, I'm going to get into some quick, easy icebreakers a little bit later in this presentation. However, I think bringing in the icebreaker is going to ensure that you engage them from the beginning, because one thing you do not want your students to be disengaged from the beginning of the meeting, because once they're disengaged, there's no getting them back. You have to clearly state what the purpose of the meeting is. And it could go something like, the purpose of this meeting is to go over a few schedule changes, or it is to go over some questions that I tend to get a lot, whatever the case may be. But you want to definitely state the purpose of the meeting, because otherwise people are going to wonder why they're there, and they're going to say, this is stupid, or I don't want to be here. So state the purpose. Obviously, the content is what you're there to talk about, and then lend time for a question answering period, and then have a summary and a closing. And the closing, always end on a positive note, and always try to summarize some of the very vital points that you may have discussed in the meeting. Now, there is no doubt that you may run across quote, difficult students in your meeting. The first thing is, try not to take it personal. And I know this is one of those things that's difficult to do, but try not to take it personal. Simply because you have the upper hand. And some of it is really about students just trying to test you, and some of them are just trying to show off. So, but I think one of the things you have to do is nip it in the bud, which I'm going to talk about in a second. Stay professional. Whatever you do, just stay professional. Because when they find out that they can get on your last nerve, or they can get that, they get an inch, they're going to take a mile. I'm talking about the difficult students here. And also, this may inspire other people who are sort of on the fence. And one thing you don't want to do is, you don't want to lose your cool, and next thing you know, you've lost your entire group of students. Utilize resources if necessary. What I mean by resources, I mean people who can come to your aid. I do not recommend you doing it at the very beginning. However, if you're having a issue with a student, maybe you might want to pull that student to the side after the meeting is over and just talk with them. And if that doesn't work, then you bring in your additional resources. So if you're RA, it may be your resident director. If you are a orientation leader, it may be whomever your supervisor is. And last but not least, once is a habit. And what I mean by that is, if you allow a quote difficult student to do something that crosses the line, and you don't correct them at that particular moment, or at least in the beginning, they're going to continue to do it over and over and over again. So you cannot let them get away with something that you deem disrespectful. You have to nip it in the bud right away. Otherwise, it's going to continue to grow and fester and become an even bigger problem. Okay, let's talk a little bit about icebreaker examples. When conducting icebreakers, consider these things. Challenge by choice. If it is a physical icebreaker, meaning that people have to get up and do things, please understand that not everybody is going to want to do this. And you simply say, if someone has a physical issue or limitations, this is challenge by choice. You do not have to participate, but you do have to stay and watch. The 10-80-10 rule, again, not everyone's going to be thrilled with it, so just keep that in mind. But this icebreaker is a good way to get that 80% on your side. Alternative activities. You may want to have some backup activities in place in the event that one activity can't serve the purpose. So, for example, you may run into an issue where not everyone's at the meeting. You may have planned an icebreaker for 30 people, but only 15 people show up. You don't want to be in a situation where you cannot get that icebreaker done. Which goes into my next point, which is being aware of time and space. You may only have 30 minutes or 20 minutes or even 15 minutes to do a very quick meeting. So consider that it needs to be considerate of people's time, and also consider the space. So before you even decide on this icebreaker, kind of get a sense of where you may you may conduct this meeting, the location. And then last but not least, a good way to introduce boring content is just a icebreaker. So you tell them, look, guys and girls, I know some of you are very tired. I know it's been a long day, but I have been charged to get this done. So this is what we're going to do. And you keep the content short and simple, maybe do an icebreaker. But again, see what type of mood everyone is in. I mean, you may want to take out the icebreaker, especially if it's been a long day and you're just now getting your students together. You may not have that type of time, but do it at your discretion. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about icebreaker examples. So the first example is don't drop our values game. So it's very simple. What you're going to do is you're going to get some type of ball. I would recommend like a beach ball, a ball that has the ability to kind of float in the air a little bit. You can use a balloon, but balloons are a little bit difficult to write on, but I think using a volleyball would be great. And what you want to do is you want to pass the ball around and ask everyone to write down something that they find of value. And once you do that, you want to pretty much volley the ball in the air. And you let them know that you cannot let the ball drop on the ground because these are our values. So you'll have people hitting the ball and you keep a number of the ball. You tell them that, the record is 75 or something like that, and see how far they can keep tapping up in the air. How many times can they do it consecutively? And people will have fun. It will energize people. It'll be a great activity. Example number 2 is very simple. You may have already done this. It's called 2 truths and a lie. It's simple. Everyone goes around. They tell 2 truths and a lie about themselves. And it becomes the burden of the people to figure out, what are the truths and which ones are the lies. This one is always fun, and it gets a lot of people kind of talking, and also it I think lends for allowing people to find what commonalities they have with other people that they don't really know. Example number 3 is the cell phone or the telephone. You want to get in a circle. Everyone gets in a circle. Now, this works best for larger groups. This doesn't necessarily work if you only have like 5 people or 10 people. That's not going to work too well. But if you have, let's say, 30 or more, what you want to do is you want to whisper something in their ear, and you want to get the person to then repeat what you said till it gets all the way around back down. Now, usually someone's going to change it, and it's not going to be the same thing that you initially said to the person that started off the activity. And remember, it's a circle, so it has to go around in a circle. Now, what I like about this activity is that you can let people know upon doing this activity, and listen, we live in a very small community, and what you do can easily become a rumor or get out to other people. So we have to make sure that we're very cognizant of what we do in this community. It's a great lesson for teaching people about not gossiping in the community and kind of keeping things at a level of discretion. Example number 4, either or. I call this the chocolate or vanilla game. I don't know if that's the name of it, but basically you want to have people line up in the middle, and you want to just give them a choice of 1 or 2 things. So who are the people that like chocolate? Who are the people that like vanilla? If you like chocolate, you go on this side. If you like vanilla, you go on this side. You may give them different things from pop culture. You may always give them 2 choices, red or blue, black or white, seafood or Italian, whatever. I mean, I think the key is getting something that has a duality to it, city or country, or not even that. Just something that is interesting. Keep it interesting, but also keep it professional. because I've seen some either or games that get a little crazy. But you keep it as professional as possible, either or. And I think that will be an awesome game to get to know people and what they like. And some people may say, well, I don't like either. Well, pick one. Pick one. Okay, example number 5, the common circle. Now this is a game just to find out what you have in common. So it's a step in game. You get your people in a circle, and you just ask the question. For example, you may say, play a sport in high school, and the people who play a sport in high school will go into the circle, and then they'll come back out, and then you'll say something else that people may have in common. And this keeps going until you pretty much say stop. But one of the things you want to tie in, you want to say to people, you see how much we have in common. Let's focus on our commonality as opposed to our differences. Because see, building a community is really all about that. It's all about finding what those commonalities are and things that you can easily agree upon. I think everyone can agree upon wanting to feel safe in a clean environment. Everyone can agree to that. You're not going to find anyone saying, no, I don't agree today. If you do, then, you may want to have a conversation with them about this particular community. But this is a great activity to find out what you have in common with them, but also what they have in common with each other, because that's going to go a lot further in the long run than anything else. And it starts to build some genuine connections between people. Example number 6 is bingo. You'll see a bingo attachment or a downloadable form for this. And so bingo is very easy. It's self-explanatory. You just have them go around, get information from people. And this works very well if you got a really large group. If you got a small group, it doesn't work as well. I would probably say, in order for this to work, you probably need at least 25 people. And your bingo has to be relevant. So you don't want to put things in there that people are less likely to have maybe done or accomplished or possess. So keep that in mind. Here are the key points. Orientation has 3 phases. We talked about those. There's the pre-arrival, once they arrive, and then sort of the follow-up phase. You want to utilize icebreakers at the beginning of meetings. Great way to introduce topics, great way to kind of get people engaged in the meetings. You want to facilitate group meetings, but don't forget the rules. So in other words, keep it professional. Keep it professional. You are a role model, but you are not perfect. I think one of the issues that people run into oftentimes is the fact that as leaders, you feel like you're in a fishbowl and you can't do certain things like go to a party. Certainly you can, but you have to also understand how you may be perceived. You can't get drunk. I tell you that. That's a bad look. But you can certainly, you are allowed to have some fun, but keep in mind other people are watching. Here's another point. It's another point. It's not about you. It's how well connected they are to each other on the campus. So keep that in mind. You don't want people you don't want to be the common thing that people are against. Okay, you never want to be that. But you certainly want to try to help them connect with each other because, as I said before, you can't be all things to everyone. You just can't be. And it's great that some people will have some relationships with you, but it's more important for you to be a facilitator of bringing people together as opposed to them, just connecting with you. So keep that in mind. That's a very important point. Of course, action steps. So goal for your continued learning. What are the 3 resources in your environment that you have access to that can help you with this particular topic? Who are 2 colleagues that you can tap for support while striving to achieve this goal of becoming proficient at all that we talked about? And what is one action step you can take in the next week to improve your standing as an orientation leader or as a peer mentor? And additional resources. For additional resource, please refer to Up Your Org, a guide to help orientation leaders thrive. I can't even talk, right? By me, Tawan Perry. And of course, download the Show Them How It's Done handout. And I have a few other handouts that may help you as well. So with that being said, guys, thanks again for listening, and I hope that has been helpful. Take care.